What makes a great teacher become a horrible teacher? Well, there's lots and lots of different versions of what horrible can be. But what I'm thinking about is those teachers that become angry. They get mad real quick in the class. They yell. They're just a challenge to be around. They might even be scary to some students. Um, it's almost like they just hate their job. What makes a good teacher? A person that when they went to school and they got their training, they were looking forward to change in the world. What helps them? What brings them to that point where they hate their job, but they don't leave? This video is about that. Now, first of all, there's what I feel is a universal truth, and that is teaching is the most fulfilling job you could ever have. I mean, there's just, I don't know how to explain it other than it's just so amazing when you've helped a young person, or even an adult if you're an adult school teacher or teacher teaching adult classes. There's just something fulfilling about knowing that you've helped someone learn something that may very well change their lives and could actually touch tens, thousands, hundreds, millions of other lives. It's very fulfilling to know you've helped that person to become more than they might have ever thought they might could be. Teaching is the most fulfilling job ever. That being said, let's think about where teaching is these days and where it's going and what teachers have to face. When you go into teaching, first thing you have to recognize is that the pay rate is not the best. In fact, in a lot of environments, the pay rate is below poverty level to start. A lot of school districts are assuming that a teacher, when they become a teacher, they're going to be young, very likely single, probably living in a place with roommates, and over time, their income will grow, their wisdom will grow, and they will grow. And as the income grows, so is their lifestyle. They'll perhaps buy a house, get married, have kids. All those things could be coming along over time. Now, in the teaching industry, when you go into to be a teacher, the pay rate you get is based on two factors. One is how much experience you have, and the other is how much education you have. Most teachers have no experience, and a lot of teachers are going in with just their bachelor degree and the training they got. Now, the teaching industry requires an ongoing learning process. You have ongoing education. Teachers have to keep getting additional units in education. They have to keep educating themselves and improving on themselves. It's not just you get the job and now you do it for 20 years. You don't have to improve on yourself. No, you have to improve on yourself. You have to do things, take courses, take workshops, things to get units, a certain amount of units every year, and progress that way. Now, here's the thing is, again, your pay rate is based on experience and education. If I were just graduating college and I have a bachelor's degree and I have no experience teaching, but I took all the coursework and I did all the student teaching stuff, and I'm applying at a job, and someone else did the same thing, but let's say they have a bachelor's and a master's degree, and yet we both have pretty much the same thing to offer. The district will probably want the person with the master's degree, but if funds are tight or funds are a big factor, they're probably going to take the person with just the bachelor's degree, not the bachelor's and a master's, because they have to pay that person more money because they have the master's degree. Now, I'm not saying don't get a master's degree, because there's a lot of school districts that are desperate for people, and it's like they'll pay for that master's degree. A lot of school districts want that person with the master's degree because they have more to offer. But when it's a numbers thing and it's a money thing and it's a tight budget thing, they got to look at that factor, and they're going to take the teacher that's not as expensive but has the same thing to offer. Now, that being said, when you get your job as a teacher and you're making a certain amount of money, you're all excited. You become this teacher that you wanted to be, and boom, you're off and running. Well, what happens for a lot of teachers is a lot of teachers get stuck. They get stuck where they're at because they have to get so many units each year. And a lot of teachers, since they're getting that continuing education, they use the direction of getting another bachelor's degree or getting an AA degree and a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or even further. And each year, the wage increase is a stair-step process. You get hired, you got zero experience, and you have a bachelor's degree. Now you get your continuing education, so you're going to get a raise. And then you get more experience. You've been there a year. So you got a little bit here, and you get an additional raise, increase here. So that's a double factor. It's a stair step, more education and more experience. More education, more experience. More education, more experience. So what happens is you become more expensive if you go to a different school. If you're teaching, say, in one school district, and a year later you go to another school district, the pay differential is not extreme. And there's a very good chance you might get that job in the other school district. In fact, you could probably jump from school to school for about 3 years without getting an additional degree, because if it's just getting just the continuing education units. But as soon as you get another degree, or as soon as you have a certain amount of units, that's going to go towards an increase in pay. And you could conceivably price yourself out of being a teacher in a district, because if you've jumped district to district to district, they're going to look at that as a factor too. Oh, you weren't in one place, for 3 years. You were at 3 places over 3 years. And so they're going to be like, I don't know. And then you're also now worth 3 years worth of experience and 3 years of additional education behind you. Now, there's a difference, because let's say you worked in private schools. And let's say the private school didn't require you to get those continuing education units. So you might have 3 years of experience behind you, but you don't have any of the continuing education behind you. So now you're financially worth them hiring, because they're going to save a lot of money, because they're not having to pay for that additional education as well. You're not at XYZ steps on the step ladder. But here's the thing, is because of the structure of a lot of schools and a lot of school districts, it's getting harder and harder for teachers to teach and feel a sense of respect. And I'm not talking about just respect from the kids. I'm talking respect from every facet of the job. First of all, you're a new teacher. You go in, you're anxious to do a great job, so you're going to be devoting a lot of time, way more time than just a 9-to-5 job. You're going to be putting in tons of time at night grading papers. You're going to be putting tons of time at night trying to come up with those amazing new lesson plans that that are going to wow the students and help you to really get through. And then you're going to have whatever the academic side wants. The principal wants you either after school programs. School might want you to teach summer school. The school might want you to come in for a Saturday class for certain students that are falling behind. School might want you to do yard duty, and so your open break now becomes for yard coverage. I mean, there's all kinds of things principals might want. And if you're in a great school, in a really good school, you're going to be happy, and they're going to work with you on all this stuff to help you make sure that you have a good work-life balance. But if you're in a bad school district, or you're in a bad school with a bad school district, it's going to be hard, because you'll go in excited, and on the first year, exhausted, but darn it, you made a difference, and you're still excited. Second year, all right, it's supposed to get easier, something's not happening, but it's okay because it's going to get better. Well, the school you're in might have a really bad principal, or it might have a bad school superintendent and a bad principal, and it might not even have a vice principal. It might just be a bad principal, and everything that the vice principal normally does is kind of thrown on all the teachers and administrative staff. So year 3 comes, you're starting to get tense, starting to experience stress. The lack of respect the students are giving you is starting to take its toll. Lack of respect from parents, lack of respect from administration, lack of respect from the principal. All this slowly builds, and by the 5th or 6th year, you're angry, you're pissed, and you hate your job. But now you've got enough years behind you, and enough experience, and enough units, or additional bachelor degree, or a master's degree, or gosh knows what else, that your options are pretty limited to almost zero. You either leave the school and leave teaching altogether, or you hope that things will change in that school. But if things aren't going to change, your options of leaving have really become restricted, because you were making poverty level at one point, but after enough years, your poverty level becomes, a low income or low middle income income that you're getting, and you're making enough that perhaps you now have purchased a house, or put a down payment on a house, and you're living in the house you're paying a mortgage on. Perhaps you got married and you decided to have kids because your spouse is working too. So with the 2 incomes, you're able to have this better life outside of your job. But if you hate your job, you can't just walk away from it. It's not like, you're doing contractor work, building houses, and, you're just one of the carpenters, and you could talk to the 10 or 20,000 other contractors within a 100-mile radius about becoming a carpenter for them, and then eventually, boom, you're over there, because those contractors are going to say, yeah, you were a carpenter, you're making this much there, but you know what, I can't pay you that much. Tell you what, I can pay you this much though. And you'll go, sounds good, I can make that work, I'll take it. And then you move to another job. Teaching it's not as easy. For teaching, for one, school districts and other schools aren't as quick to grab up a teacher that's leaving one school to go to another. You don't want to change schools in that school district for reasons that bad principal, we had conflicts, this and that, or what. It's got to be, you need to keep a positive relationship with the superintendent and with all the principals in that school district. So if you're going to jump districts, that's a pretty nasty, potentially nasty commute. It might even mean selling the home, moving the family. But also, when you're trying for those new jobs, that school district, that new school that's looking at you is going, ooh, yeah, they have 6 years of experience, but I got this other person that has 2 years experience, and they don't have a master's degree, and they don't have another bachelor's degree, and they only have this many units. The financial factor is a big reason schools choose to hire what teachers they hire, because they're trying to keep their costs down. They want to keep their costs down because they want to keep the older teachers experienced teachers, but they also want to take money and use it for other things too. But the whole point is that they have to work in the budget. And they got to work with that budget. And a new teacher might only cost them $42,000 a year, while that experienced teacher with 6 years is costing 68, 65, 68,000 a year. I mean, that's a big difference. That's a whole 1/3 less. That's, they could almost hire 2 teachers for the cost of the one, almost. And so this is what happens is the school districts, the superintendent is coming down on the principal, and the principal's coming down on the teachers. And if there's a vice principal, the principal's coming down on the vice principal. Vice principal comes to teachers. The vice principal is always a good cushion. I understand. I know what you're going through. I'm really sorry. This is what we got to do. Because the vice principal understands the plight of the teachers more closely than the principals. Usually principals, only if they were a teacher and they went through the horrors, do they understand it. A lot of principals out there are horrible and they don't care. They just want to make sure the parents are happy. And they'll even have kids that can barely do anything pass just to make sure they don't have kids stay back. And so you as a teacher are now stuck. You're stuck in a school with an administration that's horrible. And there's not a lot that's going to happen other than you starting to get more and more angry. You're going to be in the classroom, instead of being super vibrant and looking forward to this, you might have started to have less tolerance and less patience for the students. And your patience and tolerance is shorter for the students because it's much shorter for the administrative now. It's much shorter for bad parents. And so what you had, what originally started as this awesome teacher, evolved into a very angry individual who doesn't want to be there. They still love the experience of getting through to certain kids. Trust me, they always have, every teacher has some kid in one of their classes that's just, this kid is one of the big reasons that person's really, really stuck out being a teacher, is that, those kids, that one kid or those few kids that really give them the sense of fulfillment. But they go in and they might have a class of, let's say if it's 100 students, 98 of them are just middle ground. And then they have that one student that's absolute horror and that one student that just glows. And when they go in, their whole demeanor drops. And they just, because they see that student that is a problem student. And that problem student, it's not because as an individual person, they're a problem. It's because they're basically a victim of their environment. They might have bad home life. They might have bad family. They might have bad friend problem. There's all kinds of reasons that people do what they do. And sometimes they do what they do because they're looking for attention. They just want to know that they have value. And there's a lot of parents out there that also teach their kids that you have more value than anybody else. You're entitled to whatever you want because you're important than anybody else. So you have the whole spectrum of why some person is a challenge. And that challenge brings the teacher down. So that person that started as a teacher with all that vibrance and drive to be the most amazing teacher, they eventually just that they're whatever's inside of them, that energy, that positive energy starts just chipped away. It's like a chisel against wood, taking a piece out, and you almost have to wonder what all those problem people have slowly created once the wood is chipped away, what that sculpture is, because it's probably not the prettiest sculpture. And those teachers become angry and they yell and they have no patience and they have no desire to even be there. So if you hear someone say there's a bad teacher, as an adult, think about why that teacher of your kids is bad and what might have done it. Don't excuse it because, that teacher needs an eye-opening moment, but that teacher also needs to be cared for. They need to feel like they have value again and that they're not just, some kind of floor mat for kids and parents and administration to step on. And so that's basically where you get how, a great teacher became a bad teacher. Again, my name is NanetteSage, and please give my videos a big thumbs up, and hopefully you subscribed. And, now whenever you hear about a teacher that's just not the best of teachers, just remember that teacher may be stuck where they're at. They're pushed into a corner, and now they're just trying to survive, and that's it. All right, I love you guys. You have a fantastic day, and eat your vegetables. All right, bye.